Indianapolis, Indiana. Lucas Oil Stadium, to be specific, as we are here. Day one of Big Ten Media Days. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Bud Elliott. That's Danny Cannell. That's Tom Fernelli. I'm Chip Patterson, coming to you live at CBS Sports Network. And thrilled to be here because we are going to enter one of the biggest seasons of Big Ten football in the league's history. Yes, we've got more members. Yes, we've got a better opportunity to be able to see what kind of talent this coast-to-coast league can be. We've got the reigning national champions here. Tom, as we get set, we got Illinois, Rutgers, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Purdue, Ohio State in the house today. We've been hearing from the coaches. We've been hearing from the players. We got the commissioner, Tony Petitti, up on the mic as well. What are some of the things that you've been able to see and hear so far here on day one?
Well, I think that, starting with Tony Petitti, the one thing I was looking forward to, or not forward to, but expecting was questions about expansion, about what's going to happen. Because we've got 4 new schools coming, but expansion never ends. You two are very familiar with what's going on behind the scenes. And he was asked, and much like Greg Sankey last week at SEC Media Days, he gave the, we're happy with the 18 that we have, and we're focused on the 18 that we have. And I think that is probably the right response for this. But it's going to be interesting seeing going forward with the lawsuits going on. Will that still be the case? And if so, for how long?
Somewhere Brett Yormark and Jim Phillips are watching like Sankey and today Petitti, and they're like, man, these guys have it so easy.
So easy.
Yeah. Right?
I was just thinking,
so easy. They don't have to worry about any questions about, who's leaving, potentially lawsuits. Are you open for business? All those things. This is a conference that has security right now, and that is something that a lot of conferences and a lot of schools are very envious of. I think they're positioning themselves in a position of strength. I mean, it really is the Super Two. It's the SEC and the Big Ten who have positioned themselves in this position as kind of the future of college football. Everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses, and the Big Ten are the Joneses.
100%. I really don't think Petitti would say anything that would embroil the Big Ten in a lawsuit with the ACC when the ACC is already suing or being sued by pretty much everybody else in college football. I'm interested to see what expectations the coaches set when they get on the podium. And for Rutgers, is it come from make a bowl? Is Ryan Day going to say, hey, Ohio State's national title or bust? Probably not something to that extent, but what are the expectations that they're trying to show when they get on that podium?
Yeah, there's a sense that Tony Petitti can take that is a privileged position, which is we run this thing. We are welcoming in an Oregon team that looks like it's at the top of the sport right now, a Washington program that just played for the national championship, USC disappointing last year, but a Caleb Williams hammy away from making the playoff in year one under Lincoln Riley. So you're bringing in all these different programs at a time when you've just had Michigan win the national championship. I was interested in his continued look at NIL, right? Because we don't always hear about name, image, and likeness and your approach to it, but he is in favor of real NIL deals. There's some of he wants transparency across the NIL marketplace, but dealing with recruiting a lot, and from everybody on the 24/7 sports side, NIL is running the recruiting game. Do you foresee a future where we have that kind of transparency?
I think it's possible, but there's a give and take. Like, what would the athletes give up in order to have that transparency? I think from a Big Ten perspective, no conference should be more happy about NIL than the Big Ten. Think about where most of the talent in this sport comes from. It's not really in Big Ten country, but the Big Ten has money. I think the Big Ten's talent acquisition has been helped tremendously by NIL. So if I'm Tony Petitti, I'm NIL. Absolutely, guys. That's the way you get the players these days.
I would love to see more transparency in NIL because I'm tired of guessing and wondering if these numbers are true, and a lot of times being, frankly, jealous of the numbers that are out there. And I'm sure there's a lot of coaches, and I'm sure a lot of coaches would love transparency too, because there's a lot of agents, there are a lot of players that aren't in the business that drive up those prices, and it frustrates a lot of kids who say, man, I'm not getting what that guy got, and we don't even know if the numbers are real. So I think transparency across the NIL landscape would do everybody some good across the board.
And I think it's one of those things, too, when he's standing at that podium and he's bringing it up. This was part of his opening, statement. This was just him bringing it up.
This wasn't even a question.
Yeah,
this was part of the statement he had prepared.
Yeah, so when you try to read between the lines of what's going on, I think that's kind of an indicator that, okay, it's coming. It's not just something he wants to see happen. I think it's something that they are already working on behind the scenes to bring to the forefront. And I do think it could be a little awkward to sit there and think, oh, that running back's making $250,000 a year, this guy's making $500 just because it's college football. But I do think overall the transparency behind it will be better for everybody.
better for the athletes, potentially?
I think potentially better for the athletes if we have better information, but also there could have a kind of a cooling effect on the market if we know what everybody else is actually getting. I think it's also interesting to take note of who each of these schools brought to this event, right? Like Ryan Day and Ohio State have an unbelievably good transfer class, but they brought 3 kids they signed out of high school. And I think there's a bit of like balancing expectations and egos in the locker room with not choosing to bring a guy who's only been in your program for 6 months now, right? Like you want to kind of show love to those guys that you recruit out of high school, and Ohio State did that.
We are scheduled to speak with Emeka Egbuka, the star Ohio State wide receiver, a little bit later on in the hour. Very excited about that. Speaking of those Ohio State Buckeyes, Danny, how in the world does an Ohio State Buckeye manage the title or bust expectations for the 2024 season?
I think you're used to it. I was at Florida State in 94 after we won in 93, and it was sort of the same. That was the expectation. That was how you judge success or not, was a national championship. And I'm sure those Buckeyes, they've had this mentality throughout their career in Columbus. But now that it is a reality, now that they do have all this talent and that people are picking them once again, they haven't exactly been forgotten about. But I feel like they're used to this position. But it does put a lot of pressure on the guys who are coming from the outside, like a Will Howard, who is not used to that expectation. He is not used to a fan base where you might win, but you win ugly, and they're wondering if you should be starting anymore. And we saw Kyle McCord struggle with that last year. I just wonder mentally how Will Howard, some of these new guys to the team, how they face that type of scrutiny.
I think it's a little different, though, because like you said, you guys won in 93. So when you came back in 94, the expectations were there because you'd done it. This is an Ohio State team that has not won the Big Ten in any of the last 3 seasons. It got to the playoff 2 years ago, was very close to knocking off Georgia, and probably would have gone on to win the national title against TCU if they moved on. But you have the weight of failing to meet the expectations for the last 3 years on your shoulders, and you come in, and yes, there are new players. Will Howard comes in. Caleb Downs is coming from the Alabama program where there's no shortage of success that he's been able to deal with while he was there too. So this is the team, is the number one with a bullet. It is the favorite. It is the team that is supposed to win this conference, and this is the team, if you have to pick one of these schools that you think is going to win the national title, it's Ohio State. So to have those expectations on there, that's not going to be easy to handle.
We have their schedule on the screen right now. How does Ryan Day handle the practice? Because Ohio State is going to be a 3-touchdown or more favorite in their first 5 games plus that bye week. How do you kind of get that mentality in practice? Hey, guys, we cannot get fat and happy because we're beating Western Michigan by 50, all right? Or we'll probably crush Michigan State as they're in a bit of a rebuilding cycle with a new coach this year. How do you manage those expectations, and then you have to go to Eugene? Like, that's your first real test for a team of this talent. I'm curious.
That schedule reminds me of Michigan when they had 2 quarterbacks playing, and they had the luxury of playing them, saying, hey, I'll start one the first half, play the next the second half, with the question marks. Will Howard still hasn't been named the starter, right? Devin Brown, Julian Sain in the wings. He's going to be able to play these guys in meaningful play, start second quarter, and still get a feel so that when you face Oregon on the road, there will unquestionably be a guy under center for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, when you have a half dozen players who choose not to go to the NFL draft and return for another year and get other players who potentially could have been in the NFL, then that means your 2s and your 3s could have been somebody else's 1s or 2s. Quite a luxury for the Buckeyes, who are the front runner going into the season. Well, we are very excited because coming up on the other side, we are going to sit down with Purdue quarterback Hudson Card, talk to him about the Boilermakers, what's changed from last year to this year, and what we can expect in 2024. Next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. Day 1, Big Ten Media Days, and pleased to be joined by Purdue quarterback Hudson Card. How has this been so far for you? I mean, you're getting put through the whole car wash. Are you still feeling your spirits high? Are you worn down? What's a vibe check going on right here?
I've been here a couple hours now, but just had some lunch, so that gave me some energy, so I'm ready to roll again.
Do you guys have any fun while you're here? Like, do you guys get to go to dinner with the players, with the coach? Is it a little bit of relaxation? Because I know it's a lot of work talking to guys like us.
Yeah, so yesterday we ended up staying in a hotel. I know we're close to Indy, West Lafayette, but we stayed in a hotel yesterday. Had a good dinner with coach and the guys here. So it's been a good experience.
Go ahead.
I think that you're here actually says something. I mean, you had a big time year last year. You had some guys transfer out. What was the pitch from Ryan Walters? I assume you got tampered with, or they tried to at least somewhat to get you to go somewhere with how the quarterback market shook up this year in the transfer portal. What was the pitch from Walters to get you to stay at Purdue, and why did you make that choice?
Yeah, I think it comes with trust. I really do trust Coach Walters and Coach Harrell and the staff, and I know that year one, at times you can have some adversity, and I think we're all in this together. So the jump that you can make from year one to year two, I really believe in that, and we added some guys, some key guys in the portal, and some guys that will step up for us, and I really do think we're in a good spot, and I see that light at the end of the tunnel.
I think us in the media, so often we look at transfers and guys come in and you just expect to click right away. And I'm always reminding people, I'm like, it takes time to get comfortable within a system. How much more comfortable? You mentioned the jump from year one to year two. Because, physically you probably haven't changed that much, but mentally is where that change takes place. How much more comfortable you are running a system, getting in and out of the huddle, making checks at the line of scrimmage, and just how much you think that'll help this year?
Yeah, a whole lot. Just like you said, it's really the checks and everything like that. It's that next step that you're able to get to going into year two. And I think offensively, even the guys around the ball, receivers, they're a lot more comfortable with the system. So now you're able to kind of mix and match and be able to create those matchups that you kind of see going into year two. So I think all across the board, and that's defense and special teams as well. Just having that extra year in the system really does make a big difference, and it allows us to play more confidently as well.
So any Purdue quarterback is going to have to answer a Drew Brees question. But when you're from Austin, too, and you've just got it tied all the way back to where you came from, tell me about that. What that relationship is like with the former Purdue great.
Yeah, it's an awesome relationship to have, especially someone like him. And it's funny because he always kind of gives me crap about the Westlake Lake Travis situation.
Love it.
So obviously we were big rivals in high school. So it's something that's interesting, from him being right where I'm from and coming to Purdue, and I'm going through the same sort of experience that he went through. So it's pretty special to share that.
So we have our big college fantasy draft coming up, and we know in a Graham Harrell offense they're going to chuck the ball around. You had a big year last year. Burks is gone, Sheffield's gone. Who are the receivers that we need to be picking in our college fantasy draft? we need this insider info here.
I'm not going to lie. That room has a lot of depth this year, and it looks almost completely different from last year. We have I think 4 or so that stayed, and so that room looks completely different, but it has a lot of depth, and Coach Walters did a great job attacking the portal and getting guys that would help us win, and that fit the culture. And one guy in particular that we'll have back is Jamal Edrin. Mm-hmm. He messed up his knee last camp, so having him back as well will be a huge step for us, and I'm excited.
It's still wild to me to see this era of transfer portal movement, NIL, because team chemistry is something that's so important. But you were in there last year, it's your first year. You mentioned new guys coming in the portal this year. How do you develop that team chemistry and camaraderie in such a short window so that when the season starts, you guys feel like a tight-knit unit?
Yeah, I think one thing that Coach Walters did a great job at is getting those guys transferred in January and getting them on campus in January, which has gives us more time to develop those relationships, and credit to him for being able to do that, because ultimately that makes a pretty big difference. And you're right, though, it is a challenge when you have almost a new team every year, potentially, and but our motto is being competitive, tough, and disciplined, and I think the guys that have been here have really bought into that, and being a player-led team really helps with getting the new guys involved and engaged, and I'm really excited where we're at right now.
So you've mentioned your coach Ryan Walters a couple times. What a unique position to see him from being a first-time head coach now heading into his second year. What have you seen in terms of growth with him? What have you seen from your coach in terms of the way that he's changed with the experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think his philosophy and everything has been great, and I think for anyone, a new title or position, you learn a lot with that first year, and
yes.
Myself included being here, my teammates and Coach Walters, and we're all kind of in this together, which has a really cool and special feeling to it all, and he'll continue to learn and get better, and I trust him completely, and I'm looking forward to going to war with him this year.
You mentioned Jamal getting hurt in camp last year. You guys also had a bunch of injuries on the offensive line. I felt it was kind of a rotating group there. How excited and what kind of growth have you seen out of that group?
Yeah, obviously we've added some pieces at that group, and we have a lot of depth this year too, which we're in a better position this year than last year, and again, I think it's just that jump from year one to year two, and being able to have those situations come up, and we added some guys, and then just the guys that have been here in the past, they all have to work together, so that relationship, and they have to be on the same page, so they've done a great job so far, and ultimately they're going to help me stay protected, and I feel good about it.
I can't open up social media without seeing people tweet about EA Sports college football. Have you had a chance to play? You play with yourself? It's got to be an incredible feeling to do that. What do you think?
Yeah, I have.
Got a review?
Yes. All right.
I have. Yeah, it's been pretty surreal to see yourself and be able to play yourself on a video game. It's a blessing to be able to do that, and it's been fun. I'll have guys come to me and be like, "Man, you threw 4 or 5 picks for me, yesterday," or they'll come in and be like, "Man, you went off for me." So I tend to say it's on the user, that's playing, but it's been awesome so far.
All right, I live in Orlando. I'm tight with a lot of developers. What did they get wrong in your ratings? I'll text Ben right now. Let's get some ratings adjustments.
Names in the game.
Yeah. We're right down the street. So throw power, throw accuracy, throw on the run. What did they mess up?
I don't really go too deep into it all. To be honest, it's a blessing to even be on the video game, but I don't know if they are or not doing weekly updates.
They are, yeah. They're doing 3 or 4.
Yeah, so maybe I can bump that rating up a little bit as the season goes on. But we'll see.
Okay, one last question for Hudson Card. We appreciate your time. Aside from improving your EA stats with your on-field performance, clearly a goal for the season. What will define success for Purdue in 2024?
Yeah, I think one thing that you see a lot in great teams is that brotherhood, and being able to play with one another. I think that really does go a long way, and this is one of the tighter locker rooms that I've been a part of, so I really do feel good about that, and we have the talent and the coaching staff, and you just got to put it all together, and I'm looking forward to Saturdays this year.
Hudson Card, Purdue quarterback, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate
we appreciate it. Taking some time here at day one of Big Ten Media Days. And coming up on the other side, Purdue's not the only squad in the house. We've got Wisconsin, we've got Rutgers, and we've got some burning questions for what's ahead for them. We'll get into that and more next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live from Big Ten Media Days here on CBS Sports Network. Now, we already got to hear from Hudson Card. We're going to be hearing from Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka in a little bit, but those aren't the only 2 teams here. And so, just a few more squads. We've been able to talk to some of the people behind the scenes, hear some of the comments from the coaches and the players. And I want to start with Wisconsin, because I would say it's fair that last season did not go as many expected. You take Luke Fickell and the success that he had with Cincinnati, his own pedigree as a coach. Wisconsin, a program whose standard is 8, 9, 10 wins, always in competition for the Big Ten West. And yet that is not where Wisconsin finished the season. A couple disappointing losses. Bud, is there a lack of buzz around the Badgers? Is this a squad that is maybe being overlooked right now heading into the season?
I think there's certainly a possibility that they are, right? You would expect a year 2 jump under Luke Fickell, and yet they do have some questions. Luke Fickell typically plays really good defense. They did it at Cincinnati. They did it when he was the DC at Ohio State. Can they make that jump on this team? I think they have some nice edge rushers. Obviously, they have some nice answers in the secondary. And then what will Tyler Van Dyke be? I think that's what we're all watching. was what we saw at Miami last year. Is that who Van Dyke is, or are we going to put some of that play, poor quality play at times, on Miami? Maybe he's a reclamation project for the Badgers.
The losses to Indiana and Northwestern killed the momentum from year one. Like and you're supposed to win those games, and Wisconsin fans were devastated from those. That really put this cloud over the seasons. We're like, all right, what's happening? I think they'll be better. Mm-hmm. I think there's massive question marks around Tyler Van Dyke. I also think there's question marks around Phil Longo. I think we all assumed, I did, that what we saw at North Carolina with Drake May, and he goes out there to Wisconsin, that you would see this offense that it would at least put up pretty big numbers. And I get quarterback play is a huge part of it, but we all wondered, are you going to be able to throw it that much in the Big Ten, in Madison, especially in November? I think they'll be more physical this year. The schedule's not doing them any favors, but I think this is one of those schools that you look at, and I don't want to say hot seat, but like it's a year that they need to take a step in the right direction, and yet the record, they might be better, but I don't know if the record's going to say they're better.
First of all, Chip, I would like to point out that some of us had lower expectations.
That's right. You did nail it.
So some of us knew
I bought it.
But I do think that there should be improvement this year, because based on my feelings last year was, you're coming in, Luke Fickell's coming in, he's bringing in an entire new offense, and it's not just the staff. They were pretty much changing the identity of what we've always known Wisconsin to be, which was, your big beefy linemen and big beefy running backs pounding the rock 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They come in, they spread the ball out. That takes time. That's not going to happen in one offseason, even with the transfer portal. So now going into year 2, I do think there needs to be higher expectations that are better than what we saw from the Badgers last year, particularly on offense. But that's the thing, we keep bringing his name up, Tyler Van Dyke. It's late July. We're here at Big Ten Media Days, and Tyler Van Dyke has not been named the starter yet. So I still assume he's going to be, but it's one of those situations where you were kind of hoping he would come in and just take the bull by the horns, and they would be like, from day one, this is where we're going. So you do start to wonder what's going on.
I think Wisconsin is a prime candidate for what we call better team, not better record.
Yeah.
Like, you got Alabama coming to Madison. You have to play USC on the road. They get Oregon. They have to go to Iowa, to Rutgers, a couple other difficult road trips in there. Like, this team is going to have to be better to reach the record that they had last year. Like, last year the schedule was kind of cake, and this year it is not. So they better be better, or they actually could miss a bowl.
Also injuries last year, tough injuries that was hard to overcome. And Danny, don't ever apologize for our bias for coaches that we just like to talk to.
That is true.
I think Luke Fickell is a fantastic conversation, and so therefore I'm always going to overrate him. Okay, so last year, Rutgers makes a bowl for the first time since 2014. Bud, what happened in that bowl game? I think they beat Miami. So, Tom, they are one of these teams that has been liberated with the loss of divisions. I mean, every single year, you got to play Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. When Michigan State's running hot, that's going to be a bear as well. The schedule, even losing the divisions, is advantageous, as the Scarlet Knights have seen since joining the Big Ten. Do you see another step forward for Rutgers, even after breaking that bowl drought last season?
I don't know if they're going to be an 8-win team, but you saw, like in the media poll, the unofficial media poll from Cleveland.com that came out, Rutgers is picked to finish 9th in this league, which is not a position that Rutgers has ever been in since joining the Big Ten. So the expectations are higher. We did see improvement last year. We saw offensively they were very good running the ball, and now they've brought in Athian Kaliak-Manis, the transfer quarterback from Minnesota, and Kirk Shiraka to run the offense, hoping to take their passing attack another level to help them compete even more and score more points. And then you mentioned that schedule. There's really, it's kind of like they're saying, hey, thank you for all the cable boxes. We're sorry about giving you Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan for all those years. Just here's your reward for that. We hope you can get some wins this year. Because I do think this is a team that nobody's going to be picking it to win the Big Ten. Nobody's going to be picking them to get to the playoff. But they're ahead of Washington in the media poll, the team that played for the national title last year. So clearly, this is a team facing expectations that it's just not used to facing.
This is a team that could make a bowl by Halloween.
Yeah.
It's
insane to think
about,
but it's true.
But there's a real chance that they could start out like 6-2. They have not played, at least by my numbers, as a top half team in college football in a decade, like back to basically the Big East days or right around there. I think this team is solidly like a top half of college football team. If you switch their schedule with Wisconsin is probably 2 wins better in terms of projections. So this is a go year for Greg Schiano, kind of like it was with Louisville last year with that schedule Louisville had. Like, Rutgers has got to take advantage of this schedule this year. It's go time.
They are what I would call a tough out. They're just always going to be a tough out, no matter who's coming to town. I mean, Ohio State, they had on the ropes, and quarterback play was very suspect. Remember, there was a huge interception at the end. They were driving in, they flipped the field, and Ohio State went and scored, and it kind of took over the game. I think the Greek Rifle coming in will at least give them a better option throwing the football. It was very one-dimensional last year with Gavin Wimsatt, but I think they'll be better. And I think every year they've significantly improved. So I would expect that improvement to continue for Rutgers, where they are a tough out, which is a compliment because it wasn't that long ago before Schiano got there. It was a walkover game that was kind of a joke. You'd see a lot of 3 and 4, 5 touchdown spreads. Now they're a tough out for everybody in the Big Ten, and they're going to get some wins.
Yeah, we heard Greg Schiano talking about violent players. So, we know they've got the identity down pat 100%. Well, you mentioned those Ohio State Buckeyes. Coming up a little bit later, we will be joined by star wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. And coming up on the other side, what about the other positions? The quarterback position. We'll get into that and more for the Buckeyes next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network from day one of Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis. By the way, Cover 3 Tailgate, we got to shout out our followers. You can come join the Cover 3 Tailgate Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, live 11 a.m., youtube.com/Cover3. Like, subscribe, smash those buttons. Okay. The Ohio State Buckeyes are the pick to win the Big Ten. They are one of the top 2 picks to win a national championship. They have a rock star roster that is loaded with talent. Danny, who starts the most games at quarterback for the Buckeyes this year?
Good question.
I'll go with the veteran.
Will Howard.
I'll say it's Will Howard. He's got experience. He won a Big 12 championship. I know he hasn't won the job yet. I think it is a very interesting situation that Ryan Day has on his hands, which we see all the time in college football, where these competitions, and we use air quotes to make sure that whoever's outside looking in doesn't hit the portal or decide to leave or check out before the season starts. So I think that's an interesting dynamic. But I also think, and Bud and I were talking about this before the show, he's a big physical kid that I think they're going to run the football with, because we know about Travion Henderson and Quinton Judkins in the backfield. I think that you're going to see Will Howard be a part of this run game as well. And I think coaches always default to the comfortable nature of, I've seen that guy handle himself on the biggest stages, so we'll go there. So I'll say, and I think he's going to do well. It's going to be hard to screw this up, I think, from a quarterback's perspective. Chip Kelly,
famous
quarterback
last words.
guru. That is true. But Chip Kelly knows what he's doing as well. I think it'll be Will Howard. I think he'll start the most games.
It's kind of funny, though, like with everything that Ohio State has done this offseason, both in retaining the players they had on the defensive side of the ball, going into the transfer portal, getting Will Howard, getting Caleb Downs, you kind of forget Chip Kelly left UCLA to become Ohio State's offensive.
Big Ten job to come be the offensive coordinator.
But Danny's 100% right. Will Howard is most likely going to be the starter. He hasn't been named yet, but he probably will be. They didn't bring him in for no reason. But with his size and with Travion Henderson, with Quinton Judkins, this is going to be a team that we have seen in the last, in the Ryan Day era for the most part, has been a very pass-heavy team. I think we are going to see a transition to a more run-heavy kind of power team. And what will be more interesting to follow is because the one thing that they really struggled to do last year was finishing drives in the red zone. There were too many times they had to stop and kick field goals, which didn't really affect them against most teams. But when you get to play the Michigans and the Oregons of the world, you need to finish drives. I think Will Howard coming in and giving them that run game with Quinton Judkins and Travion Henderson goes a very long way to solving those problems. And I think this is an Ohio State offense that maybe won't look like the ones we've seen in recent years, but it might be more potent as far as scoring points.
Much like we talked with Cali McManus, right, at Rutgers. Is Cali McManus great? No, but he's an upgrade over what Rutgers had. I don't know that Howard is actually a great player, but I'm very confident that he's an upgrade over McCord. Like, Ohio State was not happy with what they got out of McCord last year. He went to Syracuse. That's a clear downgrade of school, leaving Ohio State to go be the Syracuse quarterback. They think they've upgraded. So if they think they've upgraded, you get Chip Kelly in there. I mean, when has Chip Kelly not had a good quarterback run game?
Never.
Like,
And do you know what I was thinking about? It just came to my mind here. DTR, Zach Charbonnet.
Yep.
When he's at UCLA, like, Charbonnet's running for 1,300 yards a year. DTR is a factor in the run game as well. Think about the upgrades they're having along the offensive line. The fact that you've got 2 alpha backs that could be there. It it's so funny because we're going to speak to Emeka Egbuka in a little bit, and we're probably going to ask him about Jeremiah Smith, and we're probably going to look at all of the rest of the talent. There's going to be all these wide receivers who do they need them? I mean, it is overwhelming, the offensive personnel that I think the Buckeyes are going to be able to trot out each week.
I think it's a fair point. And if you look nationally, I think passing's probably going to be down just due to all the great quarterbacks that we lost last year. So an Ohio State team that's able to rely on defense and run game. And, I mean, we're talking about this receiver room downgrading a little bit. You still have Egbuka. You still have Carnell Tate. They signed Brandon Ennis. And then, I mean, Jeremiah Smith, he's Geno Smith's cousin, 24/7 Sports #1 overall player. I talked to Dave Biddle of Bucknuts on our Cover 3 Summer School. He's like, dude, he is the real deal. And that's what I saw in all these recruiting camps. He looks like an NFL player playing high school ball. So I think he's going to play early and often.
I think this is interesting because I think with college football, you see the ebbs and flows of offensive philosophies. And, it wasn't that long ago. Alabama went to throwing the football more, right? They bring in Lane Kiffin. Tua starts throwing the ball over the yard. Recent history, Georgia, how do they get back to the top of college football? I know Stetson Bennett was good, but they got back with great defense, physical play, run game. How did Michigan get back to the top of the college football world? Defense, physical run game, quarterback kind of manages the game. It sounds kind of like Ohio State has been taking notes of what their arch rival has been doing and saying, you know what? Let's stop relying on our quarterback to have to win games for us. Yes, we need him in critical situations, but we want to be physical and we want to make sure we can run the football because essentially football is still a physical sport, right? It might be changing a lot, but I think the physicality is back.
We haven't mentioned his name yet, but the reason why I asked who the starter is because there's 5 quarterbacks in that room who potentially could have left and been competing for a starting job. You've got some of the entities that Ohio State fans are going to know. Devin Brown, when he's been healthy and when he's been put into the game, you see a level of playmaking that you think could be a real difference. Julian Sayin, he got there. He was at Alabama for a cup of coffee. He gets to Columbus, and all you hear about is Julian saying this and Julian saying that. You've got Lincoln Kineholz. You've got Aaron Nolan. I mean, this is competition, Danny, that has to require from Ryan Day to Chip Kelly to the players in that room, maintaining that chemistry to keep everyone dialed in has got to be a big time challenge.
Yes. You know what else it requires? Deep pockets, which Ohio State has. And I mean, that's one reason Texas had a great quarterback room last year. Yeah. But there is a management that has to take place. Like, I've been in quarterback rooms that were great, good chemistry. Everybody's kind of supporting each other. I've been in other ones that you got to watch your back. Like, guys are stabbing you. Like, who is this coach? Is he over there trying to weasel his way into my job? I think that's a part of it, but I do think most of it is about keeping the guys intact. Clearly, the money that's involved in college football now is a piece of it, but there's also guys that want to play. And I think the early part of the schedule will help the Buckeyes because they'll be able to get a couple of these guys on the field, maybe even 3, and be able to get them a little taste. And also, it helps them evaluate who the best player is when they have to go to Oregon that October 12th game.
Also, while it is a challenge that Ryan Day has to deal with and Chip Kelly, I guarantee you there are 17 other coaches in this league who would love to have the challenge of, which one of my 5 quarterbacks do I think I can win with?
And most of them 5 stars.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing when I look at this schedule and I see Ohio State as the favorite to win the national title, it's the word fresh. Okay? They should have 7 or maybe 8 games that are over at halftime. They're a double-digit favorite in all but 2 games. And to me, that's how you keep all those mouths fed, right? That's how you keep everybody happy because you're getting a lot of reps. Will Howard is probably not coming in there expecting to throw 40 passes a game. But this team could be really fresh and probably avoid injuries because you're not having to play your starters that many snaps, much like their arch rival Michigan did last year.
You develop depth, too. Young players coming in, transferable guys, there's chemistry. You're able to play a lot of guys so that when the back end of the season comes, you might have to rely on some of those guys due to injury. Their experience, they've been in a live action, and they're able to step in without losing much of a beat.
Expanded college football playoff is adding games to the schedule for every single team that wants to do it. If you don't have what coaches like to call competitive depth, the confidence that you can throw somebody out there and they can go and perform, then you might find yourself in trouble on one of the biggest stages that you could be on in the entire season, quarterfinal, semifinal type matchup. So, Bud, do you think that anything short of a national title game appearance is a failure for the Ohio State Buckeyes?
I thought you were asking like winning a national title. I think if you make it and you play a Georgia, Oregon, or Texas, like one of the teams that spins like you, that recruits like you, I don't think there's any shame in losing a coin flip final. But I do think if this Ohio State team does not make it to the national title game, that it's a bit of a failure, man. Like, this is the chips pushing in year, right? Like, there's expectations.
This is the advantage of having a 12-team playoff, because they could fall short of expectations, get a couple playoff wins, and still fall short.
Sure.
But I'm with you. I mean, Will Howard said it best, national championship or bust. I mean, I would say that's the bar that's been set. Of course, you can come up just short in a championship game and at least feel like, okay, Ryan Day, we don't have to wonder what his future holds. Right. But that's the type of expectations, and I think they're worthy of it based on this roster.
Yeah, I think you look at everything they've done this offseason to prepare this team for 2024. How can a national title not be the goal? Like, everything that they have and everything that they're playing for. So I do think I don't know if I would say it would be a failure of a season if they don't win the national title as much as it'd be a disappointment. I think it would be a failure of a season if they lose to Michigan again.
There you go. It's a trick question. The answer to the question was beating Michigan is where things stand for the Ohio State Buckeyes in 2024. Well, coming up on the other side, we've got the man himself joining the desk, Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka, joining the Cover 3 podcast live on CBS Sports Network. Next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast live on CBS Sports Network from Big Ten Media Days, day one here in Indianapolis. And we are pleased to be joined by Ohio State star wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. How you doing, man? What's the Media Days grind been like for you so far?
Yeah, I'm good, man. It's been a really fun experience. We got a beautiful venue here in Lucas Oil, and tons of people out here, tons of smiling faces. So it's been a great experience.
I have to assume this isn't the only time you plan on visiting Lucas Oil.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to be back in December?
I'll be back here soon. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Obviously been working out a lot in the off season, but have you had a chance to play the EA Sports game yet?
Oh, too much.
Oh,
way
great.
too much.
What is your hours log sitting at?
I don't feel comfortable sharing that, actually, but it's a little too many.
I was watching film, Coach. I swear.
Exactly.
Well, all right, I got this question, so I've got it pulled up. We got 93 overall.
Okay.
We got 92 speed, 93 acceleration, 73 strength, 98 awareness. That's experience.
We'll take the awareness.
And then 96 jump. So
Okay.
anything that they were off on that one?
Definitely the strength. What's that about?
What?
I thought I was a big physical wide
You're a
receiver.
good blocker, right?
Yeah,
he
I
can
thought so.
block.
I mean, I live down the street from a couple of developers, so we'll text. So
Yeah,
what
there's
should the strength
yeah.
be?
Is 99 an option? I think that should be an option, right?
You're a top 20 player in the whole daggone game.
If we give you 99, then Ohio State's more of a cheat code in that game than they are.
Right, exactly.
Like, we
We're
can't-
very good in that game. I
Yeah.
can't complain.
All
My
right,
player's not too bad either. So.
all right, so that's what you did Road to Glory?
I haven't done Road to Glory yet. Actually, I've been playing a lot of Dynasty.
Okay,
so.
you playing with Ohio State? You pick up somebody else?
Whenever I play my friends, I play with Ohio State, but I play Dynasty with another team.
What's
Can
the
you
team?
tell us?
I mean, I play with it was random, so it wasn't like no favoritism or anything like that. But I play with the Houston Cougars.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a fun one too because
Right.
you gotta build your
Build
way
your
up.
way up from the Big 12, exactly.
I'm an App State guy myself.
Okay, nice, yeah.
I kind of like the
Yeah.
the
The
setting in
underdog.
the mountains, the underdog, playing in
Yeah.
the Sun Belt.
Exactly.
So, I get that right there. Do you, when you play as Ohio State, who's the starting quarterback when you play?
I think it automatically just sets to Will.
Will,
I don't really do too much in the depth chart. Yeah,
So no adjustments being made.
I don't really. Well, there are some players who don't actually exist, so I take
Yeah.
them out. But yeah,
I love you sneaking that question.
That's a
in,
good
though,
question.
by the way. Just can you name the starter here? For us
when
on
you
the show?
play, just in the video game.
Exactly.
All right, so there are sky-high expectations for this offense.
Right.
I mean, you've got to look around in the locker room, and I'm sure that, being at Ohio State for as long as you have, you understand dealing with big-time expectations. Right. But is there something internally, too, as a competitor, when you just see how much talent is around you as y'all prepare for 2024?
I mean, it's kind of the same thing for Ohio State year after year. I mean, we're sitting around talking at a table like this around the same time every year, talking about the talent that Ohio State has. So, the talent is great. It's great to have, but you got to put it all together on the field. And I think something that we have that not every team in the nation does is elite leaders and senior players who have a lot of football under their belt, which I think counts for a lot of stuff. When you look at some of the great teams throughout history, all of them had seniority. So that's something I'm really looking forward to this season.
lot of seniors on this team, but not a lot of seniority in the receiver room, right?
Right.
That kind of falls upon you. What are you seeing with these young receivers on this roster?
Oh man, they're great. They're explosive. They're fast. They're smart. So it's just a privilege and an honor for me to be kind of at the helm of what we're building, or what has been built at Zone 6. So the young guys are just amazing. I'm really looking forward to what they're able to do this fall.
Yeah, I was going to say, because like you look at Ohio State and you look at the history in recent years, especially under Coach Day. I mean, you've got Marvin, who was one of the top 5 picks in the draft last year. It's like every single year, Olave, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. It's become an incredible wide receiver factory. What is it just like spending your career in Columbus, being in that wide receiver room? How are you guys pushing each other day in and day out to get better?
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I actually chose to come to Columbus. I was a highly touted recruit. I could have gone to a lot of places, but I knew that I would have shorted myself if I didn't come to Columbus. I wouldn't have developed the way that I have into the player that I am now, because I've been challenged by the people in my room. And kind of I came in, and Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, Chris Olave, they kind of took me under their wing and kind of molded me and shaped me and taught me a lot about the game. So did Coach Hart. And it's just a sense of pride that we have being a part of Zone 6. We built something special, and it's not everybody can say that about their wide receiver room.
Who are the other, senior leaders when you talk about that leadership group that is setting the tone inside the building? Who are some of those other teammates that are joining you in those efforts?
Yeah, I mean, everybody who could have left, who decided to came back. We got Denzel Burke and Jack Story here with me today. We got Travion Henderson, JT Tuamorlau. We got tons of players, Cody Simon, Lathan Ransom. Like, the list goes on and on.
What's it like going against that defense in practice, by the way? Because they
amazing.
are loaded at every spot.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you can't take any plays off, right? You can't take any plays off. So they've definitely helped me become the player I am today just by going against them rep after rep every single practice. So I definitely owe a lot of the credit to them.
I know he's only 18 years old, but how many games is it going to take before defense to start to have double cover Jeremiah and give you some single coverage as well?
I guess we'll have to see. That's not really a question I can answer, but I know he's gonna tear through defenses this fall, and I'm super excited to see what he can do. He's a freak of nature, but he's also super professional in the way he goes about his business. So he kind of has both things you would want in a wide receiver.
The wide receiver room, the skills complement each other a little bit.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the way that I see it. You tell me from being inside, it's like the puzzle pieces seem like they fit together this year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of hard to game plan for a ton of prospects like that. You look at the year in 2022 when Marv and I were both healthy. It's hard to game plan for two people. You know what I mean? And then they ended up game planning for us, and then Julian Fleming would have 100 yards that game. So it's like. It's definitely tough to deal with, and then you got to guard Trey and Quinshawn out of the backfield.
So we've talked about now the talent that you guys have on the roster, on offense, on defense. What are our expectations going into 2024? What are we trying to accomplish this year? What will make this season a success for the Ohio State Buckeyes?
Yeah, our goals are the same actually every single year. Our first goal is to beat the team of North. Our second goal is to actually be back here and win that game, and our third goal is to win a national championship, and they have to happen in that order. So our goals are the same every single year, and we're doing all our best, putting our best foot forward to accomplish that.
Well, Emeka, thank you so much for taking some time to come and join us here on the Cover 3 podcast on CBS Sports Network. We wish you nothing but the best of luck in the upcoming season, and we might see you back here in early December.
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, that about wraps things up for us here at Lucas Oil Stadium for day one of the Big Ten Media Days. We've got a lot more coming. We are going to be on from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Wednesday. More coverage. Then 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Thursday as well. And if you want to get some of the audio side, of course, go and subscribe to the Cover 3 podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to watch us in the future, you can do so at youtube.com/Cover3. We are live Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Come and join the tailgate. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.